I just did a good deed, helping some lady out of jam. I never expected her to be the mother of Isabella Vance, the girl every guy at Northwood University dreams about. What's even crazier is that this powerhouse of a woman, this CEO, decided right then and there to make me her godson. She ordered the most popular girl on campus. From now on, he's your brother. Everything you have, you share with him. Half of it is his. Looking at the murderous glare Isabella shot my way, I knew one thing for sure. My ordinary life was officially over. The unexpected rescue. The rain was coming down in sheets. I clutched my beat-up umbrella, silently cursing the weather for the 100th time. My part-time shift ran an hour late. I'd missed the last bus, and now I was stuck wading through ankle-deep puddles on the long walk back to campus. The streetlights cast a dim, watery glow on the pavement, reflecting the city's scattered neon signs like a shattered mirror. Just as I was cutting through a gritty old alley off Kenmore Square, I heard a pained groan. I froze. My senses went on high alert. This area was sketchy, especially at night. My RA had warned us in the dorm group chat 1,000 times to stay away from here after dark. Don't get involved. I tightened my grip on the umbrella, ready to bolt. Ugh! There was again a sound as faint as a whisper, but it hit my eardrums like a drumbeat. In the faint light spilling from a nearby cybercafe sign, I saw a figure huddled by a storm drain at the base of a brick wall. It was a middle-aged woman. She was wearing a faded gray jacket and dark pants. A plastic grocery bag had fallen from her hand, its contents, apples, lettuce, a carton of something, rolling into the grimy rainwater. Her face was buried in her arms, and her body was shaking uncontrollably. Damn it, I swore under my breath, but my feet felt nailed to the ground. Just walk away. What if something was seriously wrong? My conscience, what was left of it, was a real pain in the ass sometimes. After a 3-second battle with myself, I hurried over and knelt. Ma'am, are you okay? Do you need help? She lifted her head. Her face was as pale as paper, sweat and rain plastering strands of hair to her temples. Her lips trembled, but she couldn't form any words, just clutched desperately at her chest. Heart attack, stroke, a dozen terrifying possibilities flashed through my mind. The first aid training I'd learned during a high school orientation program suddenly kicked in. Medicine. Do you have any medicine on you? I tried to keep my voice steady, quickly patting down the pockets of her jacket. My fingers brushed against a small, hard vial. Nitroglycerin. Thank God. With trembling hands, I shook out a tiny pill and placed it under her tongue. Then I pulled out my phone and dialed 911 without a second thought. While we waited for the ambulance, the downpour intensified. I angled my broken umbrella entirely over her, leaving half of my body to get soaked through. The cold, clammy fabric clung to my skin. She leaned against me, her breathing shallow. I didn't dare move, just kept talking to her. Ma'am, hang in there, the ambulance is almost here. It's going to be okay. Please don't fall asleep. Her clouded eyes met mine for a second. They were filled with pain, but also a flicker of gratitude. The wail of the siren grew closer, red and blue lights slicing through the curtain of rain. The paramedics loaded her onto a stretcher, asking me a few quick questions. I followed the ambulance to the hospital and paid for the ER admission and initial tests. It was the cash from my paycheck that I'd just gotten, money that hadn't even been warm in my pocket for a day. Watching her get wheeled into the emergency room, I finally let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. A nurse asked for my information. I hesitated, then gave a fake name and a jumble of random numbers. It wasn't that I wanted to be an anonymous hero. I was just scared. What if her condition got worse and her family decided to blame me? In this world, no good deed goes unpunished. I was just a broke college kid. I couldn't afford that kind of trouble. Once I confirmed she was out of immediate danger and the hospital staff was contacting her family, I slipped out of the hospital, my hair dripping and my wallet empty. Back at the dorm, my roommate, Leo, gave me hell for looking like a drowned rat. I just said I slipped and fell, not mentioning the night's drama. The loss of those few $100 stung for a while, but then I figured I'd help save a life, so it was worth it. A few days passed, and life went on, as boring and broke as ever. Classes, my part-time job at the diner, cheap ramen. Occasionally, I'd catch a glimpse of the radiant Isabella Vance on campus, a goddess so far out of my league she might as well have been on another planet. I quickly pushed the memory of that rainy night and the strange woman to the back of my mind, until the university's ridiculously over-the-top Centennial Gala. The grand entrance. Founders Hall was ablaze with lights and filled with the deafening buzz of hundreds of conversations. The university was going all out for its centennial, and even bottom feeders like me, usually invisible to the administration, were herded in to fill seats and make the crowd look bigger. I was slouched in a hardback chair in the last row, half asleep. The dean's speech was droning on, a perfect lullaby. My roommate, Leo, nudged me, his face glowing with excitement. "Ethan, wake up, dude. This is the main event. Isabella Vance is about to give the student address." I pried my eyelids open. A spotlight flared to life, illuminating the stage entrance. Isabella Vance, looking like a princess in an elegant white gown and impossibly delicate heels, glided onto the stage. Under the bright lights, her skin was flawless, her features perfect. Every move she made seemed to command the attention of every male in the auditorium. A wave of hushed gasps and whispers rippled through the audience. "Whoa, she's gorgeous. Seriously, Isabella Vance is on another level. That look, that poise. Unreal. I'd let her ruin my life." Leo was practically drooling. I had to admit she was stunning, but only from a distance. A goddess of her caliber was always surrounded by trust fund kids and academic superstars. A nobody like me didn't even have the right to fantasize. Isabella finished her speech to thunderous applause that nearly blew the roof off the place. She gave a slight, graceful bow with a perfectly composed smile, but didn't leave the stage. The MC's voice climbed an octave with excitement. "Thank you, Ms. Vance. And now, it is my great honor to introduce our special guest for this Centennial Gala, a distinguished alumna of Northwood University and the chairman of Vance Holdings, Ms. Eleanor Vance." The applause grew even louder, now mixed with murmurs of shock. Vance Holdings, one of the biggest corporate taxpayers in the state, a titan of industry. I never knew Isabella Vance was that Vance. I knew her family was rich, but not that rich. A figure emerged from backstage and stood beside Isabella. She was a striking middle-aged woman, dressed in a sharply tailored navy blue power suit with a silk scarf tied at her neck. Her makeup was flawless, her aura commanding. Just standing there, smiling as she scanned the crowd, she radiated an executive presence that made you want to look away. That's Isabella Vance's mother. They look more like sisters. The poise, the way she carried herself. No wonder she raised a daughter like Isabella. Leo was buzzing in my ear. See her. The head of Vance Holdings. Damn, she's even more impressive in person than on the cover of Forbes. She's a total legend in Boston business." "Ethan, do you think?" I didn't hear the rest of what he said, because the powerful woman on stage, the formidable Ms. Vance, let her gaze sweep across the audience, and then, suddenly, it locked onto my section of the hall. Her smile froze. I reflexively glanced around me. The back row was just me and a few other schlubs. Who was she looking at? A second later, the hair on my arm stood up. Ms. Vance's composure completely vanished, replaced by a look of sheer, unadulterated shock and excitement. She took 2 steps forward, almost tripping, her eyes narrowing as she stared directly at me. The entire auditorium noticed her strange behavior. The whispering grew louder. Isabella sensed something was wrong and gently touched her mother's arm, seeming to ask a question. But Eleanor Vance shook her daughter's hand off. Then, under the stunned gazes of the entire student body, faculty, and administration, she bolted off the stage. The sharp click-clack of her heels echoed in the now silent hall. She moved down the center aisle, her target clear, heading straight for the last row, straight for me. The auditorium was dead silent. I was paralyzed in my seat, my mind a complete blank. What in the hell was happening? She stopped right in front of me, breathing heavily, a few strands of her perfectly styled hair now out of place. She stared at my face, her eyes shining with a frightening intensity, like a prospector who had just found a long-lost treasure. Then, she shot out her hand and grabbed my wrist in a vice grip. Her palm was hot. I could feel it trembling. "My hero." Her voice, thick with emotion, cut through the silence of the hall. "I finally found you." The entire auditorium, thousands of people was so quiet you could have heard a pin drop. Every single pair of eyes, shocked, curious, confused, suspicious, swiveled to me, hitting me like 1,000 spotlights. My face felt like it was on fire, blood roaring in my ears, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it was going to launch out of my chest. Hero. Me. Ethan Hayes, a broke sophomore who lived off instant noodles and a part-time diner job, was the hero of the renowned businesswoman, the chairman of Vance Holdings, Eleanor Vance. What kind of insane B-movie script had I stumbled into? Mom, I think you have the wrong person, I stammered, my tongue feeling thick and clumsy. Her grip on my wrist was surprisingly strong, not at all what you'd expect from a wealthy woman who had recently been ill. Impossible, absolutely not. Eleanor Vance was incredibly emotional, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I would never forget your face that night in that horrible rain in the alley off Kenmore. Wasn't it you who saved me? You gave me my medicine, called the ambulance, and even took me to the hospital and paid for my admission. Kenmore, the rainy night, the emergency. The keywords hit my brain like a sledgehammer. My eyes shot wide open as I stared, dumbfounded at the elegant, emotional face in front of me. Holy crap. The pale, simply dressed, middle-aged woman I'd found curled up in pain by a storm drain that night. Was this powerful, immaculately dressed corporate titan? The contrast was so ridiculously extreme, it felt like a scene from a movie. That was me. I admitted, my mind a chaotic mess. But ma'am, back then you looked like a normal, even struggling, middle-aged woman. Who would have guessed you were a CEO? I knew it. I knew I wasn't mistaken. My confirmation sent her into a fresh wave of emotion, and she looked like she was about to burst into tears of joy. I looked everywhere for you after I recovered. The information at the hospital was fake. The security footage was too blurry. I thought I'd never find you. I can't believe you're a student at this university. It's fate. It's truly fate. She held onto my hand, talking a mile a minute about how hard she had searched for me and how overjoyed she was to see me again. And me, I was completely petrified. I could feel a gaze from the stage that was so cold it felt like it could physically cut me. Isabella Vance stood there, her beautiful face frozen over, her eyes filled with shock, confusion, and a very poorly concealed hostility. The university deans and professors were whispering amongst themselves, clearly blindsided by this dramatic turn of events. The students in the audience had erupted into a low roar of gossip. What's going on? Ethan Hayes saved Isabella Vance's mom. For real? Ethan, the guy who always eats from the cheapest line at the dining hall? Holy smokes, what kind of luck is that? He must have stepped in something amazing. Ms. Vance looks like she's about to cry from gratitude. That kid's life is about to change forever. Next to me, Leo's jaw was hanging open wide enough to fit a baseball. He mouthed at me silently, his eyes wide. Ethan, you hit the jackpot. Jackpot my ass. Right now, all I wanted was to disappear, or for the ground to open up and swallow me whole. Eleanor Vance, completely oblivious to the bizarre scene, started pulling me by the hand, dragging me toward the stage. I stumbled along behind her like a wooden puppet, my brain having completely shut down. She pulled me to the center of the stage, stopping right in front of the ice-cold Isabella Vance. The spotlights were burning my skin. Eleanor took a deep breath, trying to compose herself, but she never let go of my hand. She looked at her daughter, her tone unprecedentedly serious and commanding. Isabella, she said, her voice booming through the microphone and echoing across the silent hall. Come here. Say hello to your brother. Bro. There. Those two syllables hit me like a bolt of lightning, leaving me charred, stunned, and utterly speechless. The auditorium, which had been buzzing just a moment ago, fell completely silent, only to erupt into an even louder wave of confused murmuring. Everyone was floored by this insane plot twist. The color drained from Isabella Vance's flawlessly beautiful face, leaving it a stark, pale white. Her eyes widened as she looked from her mother to me, as if she'd just heard the most absurd, nonsensical joke in the entire world. Mom, she cried out, her voice filled with disbelief and resistance. What are you talking about? Are you feeling okay? Ease. I am perfectly fine. I've never been more clear-headed in my life. Eleanor cut her off, her tone sharp and absolute, leaving no room for argument. This young man, Ethan Hayes, saved my life. Without him, your mother might not have been here tonight. That is a debt greater than anything you can imagine. She turned to the audience, her gaze sweeping over the students and faculty, her voice calm but carrying immense weight. I, Eleanor Vance, am a woman who repays her debts. I cannot rest easy knowing a debt of this magnitude has gone unpaid. Then, she turned back to Isabella, enunciating every word with perfect clarity. From this day forward, Ethan Hayes is my godson, which makes him your brother, Isabella. Mom, this is insane. How can you just... Isabella was frantic, trying to argue, a flush of anger and embarrassment rising on her cheeks. It only made her look more stunning and more furious. Isabella, Eleanor's tone hardened, carrying the dual authority of a mother and a CEO. Listen to me. Come here. Call him brother. Isabella stood frozen, her chest rising and falling with shallow, angry breaths. She was biting her lower lip so hard it was a wonder it didn't bleed, and the look she shot me was sharp enough to draw blood. If looks could kill, I would have been dead 1,000 times over. Thousands of pairs of eyes were locked on her, waiting to see what she would do. The university leadership looked like they were sitting on pins and needles, wanting to intervene but not daring to get involved in someone else's family matter. I stood on stage feeling like a lamb being roasted over a fire, so embarrassed my toes were curling inside my shoes. I wished I could dig a hole in the stage and crawl into it. Dear God, what is happening? I just helped someone. There was no need for this forced adoption ceremony. Isabella, Eleanor prompted again, her eyes stern. Isabella's eyes seemed to redden slightly. With a look of utter humiliation, she squeezed a single word out from between her clenched teeth, so quiet it was almost inaudible. Bro. The word was as soft as a mosquito's buzz, but the microphone picked it up. A collective gasp went through the audience. My scalp tingled, and I felt a wave of unease wash over me. I managed to force a smile that felt more like a grimace. But Eleanor was satisfied with this reluctant acknowledgement. A smile returned to her face. She held my hand in one of hers, and with the other, she grabbed the extremely unwilling Isabella, placing our hands together. Isabella's hand was ice cold. The moment she touched me, she tried to pull back as if she'd been electrocuted, but her mother held her fast. The contact with her delicate skin sent a jolt of panic through me. Eleanor looked at us, then dropped another bombshell that sent shockwaves through the hall. Good. From now on, we're a family. Isabella, you listen to me. From this day forward, Ethan is your brother. Everything you have, you must share with him. Half of it is his. Half of it is his. That sentence was the final nail in the coffin. It shattered Isabella's remaining composure and caused the entire auditorium to erupt. Isabella ripped her hand away and stumbled back a step, shouting, Mom, are you out of your mind? Her allowance, her resources, her connections, her future, inheritance. Everyone was stunned by this CEO's aggressive method of showing gratitude. This was basically plucking a poor, unknown student out of obscurity and making him a young master of a wealthy family overnight. I'm not out of my mind, and I mean every word I say. Eleanor's voice was calm, but it carried the weight of 1,000 pounds. She patted my shoulder, her eyes both motherly and imperious. Son, from now on, you're my boy. If you have any problems, you come straight to your godmother. If anyone dares to bully you, they'll have to answer to me, Eleanor Vance. I looked out at the sea of envious, jealous, and hateful glares from the audience, then glanced at the campus queen's sister next to me, who looked like she was about to faint from rage. I didn't feel like I had reached the pinnacle of my life. I felt like I had just been pushed into a fiery pit of despair. Help me. Is it too late to take it all back? I never should have walked down that alley. The Centennial Gala finally, mercifully, ended in an atmosphere of utter confusion and chaos. University officials, their faces a mixture of awkwardness and curiosity, came up to chat with Eleanor, trying to subtly fish for information about me. Eleanor handled them with ease, her tone dripping with pride. Yes, Ethan is a wonderful boy. So kind-hearted. He's a credit to this university. I stood beside her like a prize pig at a county fair, having no idea what to do with my hands or feet. Isabella had been sent home by her mother's assistant long ago. The last look she gave me before she left was bone-chilling, filled with warning and disgust. I was screwed. I had thoroughly and completely offended the high and mighty queen of the campus. After what felt like an eternity, the deans finally dispersed. Eleanor took my hand affectionately. "Ethan, dear, wow. The nickname was already that familiar. Come on. Come home with your godmother. We have to celebrate tonight." Mrs. Vance, I mean. God, mother, I stammered, the word feeling foreign and awkward on my tongue. I should just go back to my dorm. You don't have to trouble yourself. What dorm? From now on, my home is your home. Eleanor wouldn't take no for an answer, pulling me decisively towards the exit. You saved my life. A simple dinner is nothing. I've already sent my assistant to get your things. What? I was stunned. Get my... What things? Your daily necessities, of course. From now on, you'll stay with us on weekends and whenever you don't have class. We have plenty of room. I'll have a large suite prepared for you. We have staff to take care of you, so you won't have to eat that terrible dining hall food anymore. Look how thin you are. She said it all, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. My jaw dropped. This wasn't a discussion. It was a decree. And just like that, dazed and confused, I was half pushed, half escorted into her luxurious Bentley. Sinking into the plush leather seats and breathing in the car's expensive air freshener, I watched the city lights blur past the window, feeling like I was trapped in a bizarre, surreal dream. The car drove into a heavily guarded, serene, and obviously exclusive gated community. It pulled up in front of an imposing 3-story villa. As I stepped into a living room more opulent than a 5-star hotel lobby, I saw Isabella. She was sitting on a massive sofa, arms crossed, her face so dark it looked like a storm cloud. A housekeeper in an apron stood nervously nearby. When she saw me walk in, Isabella let out a cold snort and turned her head away, treating me like I was invisible. "Isabella, where are your manners?" Eleanor frowned. Isabella shot up from the sofa, her voice trembling with emotion. "Mom, what are you doing? Bringing him home. Having him stay here. Do you even know who he is? What if he's a con artist? What if he has some ulterior motive?" "That's enough." Eleanor cut her off sharply. "I know what kind of person Ethan is better than you do. He is my savior. Without him, you wouldn't have a mother today. Is this how you treat your brother and your mother's hero?" "Brother? I don't have a brother. I'm an only child." Isabella's eyes turned red with anger. "Who knows if he saved you on purpose? Maybe he planned the whole thing, just waiting for a chance to latch onto our family." Her words were like a needle, jabbing me right where it hurt. I might be poor, but I had my pride. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Isabella, you've got it all wrong. I was just passing by that night. I had no idea who your mother was. I never planned on asking for the hospital money back. What happened today was an accident. I never expected any of this. I don't want anything from your family, and I won't disturb your lives. I'll leave right now." With that, I turned to walk out of the suffocatingly tense room. "Stop right there." Eleanor grabbed my arm, then whirled on Isabella, her voice filled with rage. "Isabella Vance, you will apologize to your brother, right now." "Why should I apologize to him? Did I say anything wrong?" Isabella stood her ground, her neck stiff with defiance. "You." Eleanor was so angry she raised her hand as if to strike her, but caught herself at the last second. She pointed towards the staircase, her voice icy. "Go to your room, and don't you dare come down until I say so. I want you to think long and hard about what you just said." Isabella stared at her mother in disbelief, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. She shot me one last venomous glare, a look that promised 1,000 painful deaths before running upstairs, crying. Slam! The sound of a door being slammed echoed from the second floor. The living room fell into a dead silence. I was mortified. "Godmother, I really should." "Don't you listen to her, dear. It's all right," Eleanor said, rubbing her temples wearily. Her tone softened. "I've spoiled that girl rotten. She's proud and stubborn, and it's hard for her to accept things. She'll come around, given time." She guided me to the sofa, her voice leaving no room for argument. "This is your home now. You're not going anywhere. From now on, I'll take care of you. The housekeeper brought out a tray of delicate pastries and fresh fruit. Eleanor chatted with me, asking about my classes, my life, my family. I answered carefully, omitting the part where my parents died when I was young and I was raised by my grandmother in extreme poverty. I just said I came from an ordinary family. She listened, her eyes filled with a deep sympathy. You poor child. You won't have to struggle like that anymore. I'm here for you now. That night, I stayed in a guest room on the second floor of the Vance villa that was bigger than my entire dorm suite. Lying on the impossibly soft bed that felt like sinking into a cloud, I stared up at the ornate crystal chandelier on the ceiling, my mind a tangled mess. Everything had happened too fast. It was all too surreal. The campus queen's brother, the godson of a wealthy family. It sounded glamorous, but Isabella's hateful glare was like a thorn stuck deep in my heart. I had a feeling my troubles were just beginning. The next morning, a soft knock on the door woke me. The housekeeper, Mrs. Gable, stood there, her attitude so respectful it made me uncomfortable. Mr. Ethan, breakfast is ready. Mrs. Vance and Miss Isabella are already in the dining room. Mr. Ethan, the title gave me goosebumps. I scrambled out of bed, showered, and put on the faded t-shirt and jeans my assistant had fetched from my dorm yesterday. Full of apprehension, I made my way downstairs. In the enormous dining room, a long, European-style table was laden with a breakfast spread that looked like something out of a magazine. There was a mix of American and international dishes, all so beautifully arranged I didn't know where to start. Eleanor was already at the head of the table, dressed in a sharp business suit, scrolling through financial news on a tablet. When she saw me, her face broke into a warm smile. Ethan, you're awake. Come sit down. I hope you find something you like. Seated to her right was Isabella, wearing a pretty sundress, slowly sipping a glass of milk. She glanced up at me, her expression as cold and indifferent as if she were looking at a napkin, before quickly looking away, as if another second of eye contact might contaminate her. I swallowed hard and carefully sat down in the chair opposite her. Did you sleep well? Is the room comfortable? If you need anything, just tell Mrs. Gable, or let me know directly, Eleanor asked with genuine concern. It was great. I don't need anything. Thank you, godmother, I answered stiffly. Good. Here, try one of these crab cakes. They're the chef's specialty. She used the serving tongs to personally place a small, perfect crab cake on the plate in front of me. Thank you, godmother, I said, feeling completely overwhelmed. Across the table, Isabella let out an almost imperceptible scoff and put down her glass of milk. The atmosphere at the table instantly tensed. Eleanor acted as if she hadn't heard a thing. Ethan, from now on, I want you to come home on weekends and whenever you don't have class. I'll have a driver pick you up. The dorms are so cramped and noisy. They're not good for studying or resting. Oh no, godmother, that's too much trouble. I'm fine in the dorms. I quickly protested. It's no trouble at all. It's settled. Eleanor's word was final. She then looked at Isabella. Isabella, when your brother comes home, you're to come home as well. Do you understand? Isabella's hand, holding a spoon, paused midair. She looked up, her face a mask of indifference. I have ballet and equestrian lessons on the weekends. I'm very busy. Those lessons can be rescheduled, Eleanor said, her tone non-negotiable. From now on, you and your brother will be together. You can look out for each other. I don't need anyone to look out for me, Isabella replied coldly. I need you to look out for your brother. He's not familiar with the area around the estate or the campus yet. Eleanor's voice grew stern. Sensing another argument brewing, I quickly interjected. Godmother, it's really okay. I can manage on my own. You don't need a trouble. Isabella, Eleanor looked at me, then at her defiant daughter, and finally sighed, dropping the subject. The rest of breakfast passed in a blur of my own awkwardness and Isabella's stony silence. Eleanor had to leave for the office. Before she walked out the door, she pressed a card into my hand. Ethan, take this. Use it to buy whatever you need for school. Get yourself some good food. Don't pinch pennies. The pin is 6/8. I stared at the black, sleek, very exclusive-looking credit card in my hand. It felt like a hot potato. Godmother, I can't take this. I really... Take it. She forced it into my hand, her tone chiding like a real mother. Don't be silly. You're my son now. How can my son not have any money in his pocket? Be a good boy and take it. Then she turned to Isabella. Isabella, take the town car with your brother to the university. I'm meeting friends for shopping. I'm not going to campus, Isabella replied flatly, grabbing her designer handbag. Without another glance at us, she walked to the garage and sped off in a red convertible. Eleanor's face hardened with anger, but she restrained herself in front of me. She patted my shoulder. Don't mind her. She's spoiled. I'll have the driver take you. And so, I returned to campus in a luxury car with a black card in my pocket. The moment I stepped out of the Bentley, I ran into Leo and a few other guys from my dorm. Their eyes nearly popped out of their heads when they saw me get out of the car. Holy crap. Ethan, it's really you. The campus forums blew up last night. Everyone was saying you saved the campus queen's mom and got adopted as her godson, but I didn't believe it. You really did it. Leo threw his arm around my neck, shouting, Is that a Bentley? So sick. Did Mrs. Vance really give you a card? How much is on it? Ethan, man, don't forget about us when you're famous. They surrounded me, their voices a mix of envy and curiosity. I forced a wry smile and tried to answer their questions, but my heart felt heavy. None of this felt real. It felt like I was living a stolen life, and it made my skin crawl. When I got back to my dorm room, I found my bunk and desk had been neatly cleaned, and someone had even put new sheets on my bed. The attitude of my other roommates had done a complete 180. They were now treating me with a cautious, almost fawning respect. I knew then that some things had changed forever. 7. Share everything. Eleanor Vance was a woman of her word. Her command to share everything began to permeate every corner of my life with alarming speed. First, there was the money. I checked the balance on that black card and nearly had a heart attack. It had a 7-figure credit line. I had never seen that many zeros in my life. I didn't dare touch it, locking it away in the deepest corner of my desk drawer. But Eleanor would wire me money every day, through Venmo, through Zelle, in amounts ranging from a few thousand to tens of thousands of dollars. The memos always read, For my dear son, buy yourself something nice to eat, Ethan's getting cold, get a new jacket, or simply, Mom loves you. When I tried to refuse, she would call me, her voice hurt and angry, accusing me of not treating her like a mother. So, I would reluctantly accept the transfers, watching the numbers pile up in my bank account, each new deposit filling me with a fresh wave of anxiety. Then came the material possessions. Every other day, packages would arrive at the dorm, all addressed to me. The latest iPhone, a new MacBook, designer clothes and shoes, watches, expensive skincare products, all from the same high-end brands Isabella used, or even better. When I tried to refuse, she would simply say, Whatever Isabella has, you must have too. Otherwise, I won't feel right. And so, under the astonished gazes of my fellow students, I was forced to start using luxury items I could never have dreamed of affording. Wearing a t-shirt that cost more than my monthly food budget, I was still the same person, but the way people looked at me had completely changed. There was envy, there were people trying to suck up to me, and there were the whispers and jealous glares behind my back. Look, that's the godson. He really hit the jackpot. Ugh, he looks like such a nouveau riche slob. You can put a tuxedo on a pig, but it's still a pig. Who knows what kind of scheme he pulled? The whole rescue thing was probably staged. Those words were like tiny needles pricking at my conscience. But the most suffocating part was the sharing that came from Isabella. Eleanor was dead serious about forcing Isabella to open up all her resources to me. Her family's private library, her golf club membership, her equestrian lessons, even her social circle. Eleanor ordered Isabella to include me in everything. You can imagine how well that went over. She didn't dare openly defy her mother, but she had a million ways to passively resist. Take me to the country club? She'd schedule it for a time she knew I had class, or she'd just abandon me the moment we arrived, disappearing with her friends and leaving me to stand awkwardly by myself. Give me her class schedule. She'd change the location at the last minute, making me waste a trip across campus for nothing. Introduce me to her friends? She'd do it in the coldest, most dismissive tone possible. This is my mom's godson. Then, her coterie of trust fund kids and socialites would look me up and down like I was some strange alien species, their eyes filled with a mixture of contempt and curiosity that made me want to crawl out of my skin. At a family dinner party once, she accidentally knocked over a glass of red wine, spilling it all over my cheap suit. It was new, but to her, it was still cheap. Then she'd feign surprise. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, brother. I'm so clumsy. This suit, the fabric isn't very good, is it? We should have Mom buy you something better next time." The relatives all shot me knowing, speculative glances, and started whispering. I just stood there, frozen, the wine stain feeling like a brand of shame. Eleanor scolded her, but Isabella just pouted, giving off an "I already said sorry. What more do you want?" vibe. In that moment, I saw the massive, insurmountable chasm that lay between us. I was like the ugly duckling who had stumbled into a flock of swans. No, not even that. I was a mudfish in a koi pond, completely out of place and utterly ridiculous. I tried talking to Eleanor, telling her I really didn't need any of these things, that Isabella and I weren't getting along, and that she shouldn't force her. But Eleanor just took it as a sign that I was being bullied, which made her feel even more sorry for me. As punishment, she turned around and canceled one of Isabella's supplementary credit cards. The result? Isabella's hatred for me deepened. She started an anonymous thread on the campus gossip forum, hinting that I was a manipulative schemer who was good at playing the victim to win sympathy and steal other people's resources. Her little clique of friends started to actively ostracize me. They'd take my usual seat in lecture halls, and when it came to group projects, no one would ever partner with me. My life felt like it had been split in two. One half was the glittering, golden, but utterly fake world of luxury that Eleanor was forcing upon me. The other half was the icy rejection and hostility from Isabella and her circle and the complicated stares from everyone else. I was a puppet on a string, pulled in two different directions, completely lost, until the day of the fight on a basketball court, when all the tension finally boiled over. 8. Forum Firestorm. The university's anonymous gossip app, Northwood Unfiltered, was a breeding ground for rumors and slander. And lately, I was the main topic of conversation. Spill the tea. The inside scoop on Ethan Hayes, the lucky bastard who saved the campus queen's mom. Source says, the rescue was a setup, a broke schemer's master plan. Spotted, Ethan Hayes, decked out in designer gear, getting dropped off in a Bentley. He's changed. Isabella Vance getting sidelined. The disgusting rise of the new brother. The headlines were sensational, and the content was even worse. A toxic mix of speculation and outright lies. They claimed I had meticulously planned the rescue, that I was using my new connection to throw my weight around campus, that I was a frog trying to eat swan meat with designs on Isabella. Someone even dug up old photos of me in worn-out clothes eating from the cheapest line in the dining hall and juxtaposed them with pictures of me now, mocking me as a hillbilly in a tuxedo who was punching way above his weight. The comment section was a cesspool. Zogos. What a manipulative loser. Mrs. Vance must be going senile to fall for a scam from a nobody like him. I feel so bad for Isabella. Imagine having this lowlife forced on you as a brother. Just looking at his nouveau riche face makes me want to puke. I heard his grades are terrible. Is he planning on inheriting Vance Holdings or something? LMAO, everyone should just ignore him. Make him an outcast. Leo was so angry he was slamming his fist on his desk. Screw these guys. They're just jealous. Ethan, don't listen to them. They're just trolls. I sat at my computer, scrolling through the venomous comments, my heart feeling like it was being squeezed by an icy hand. I couldn't breathe. I didn't care what strangers said about me, but the accusations that I had planned the rescue, that cut me to the core. My intentions had been pure, and they had twisted them into something ugly and unrecognizable. The comments about my grandmother and my impoverished past were even worse, leaving me feeling both furious and helpless. What chilled me the most was that I recognized the screen names of a few of the most vicious commenters. They belonged to the girls in Isabella's clique. Was it her? Did she approve of this? Or worse, did she encourage it? Did she hate me that much? Enough to try and ruin my reputation with lies? That afternoon, I had a public elective class. While I walked into the lecture hall, the usual chatter died down for a second. 100 pairs of eyes landed on me, filled with judgment, contempt, and morbid curiosity. I saw Isabella sitting in a prime spot in the middle of the room with her friends. She was wearing a Chanel dress, elegantly flipping through a book, acting as if she was completely oblivious to the drama surrounding her. I quietly made my way to my usual spot in the back corner. Halfway through the lecture, the professor told us to get into groups for a discussion. Usually, I could find another loner to team up with, but today, everyone avoided me like I had the plague. Sorry, our group is full. We're already set, man. In the end, I was the only one left sitting alone. The professor frowned. That student in the back, you don't have a group? The entire class turned to look at me again, and I heard a few stifled snickers. My face burned with humiliation. I clenched my fists under the desk. Just then, a cool, clear voice cut through the room, tinged with a subtle, malicious pity. Professor, Ethan can join our group. We're technically full, but we can make room. We can't just leave him all by himself, can we? It was Isabella. She looked up at me, a fake, condescending smile playing on her lips. Her friends immediately chimed in. Yeah, Professor, we can take him. He probably won't be able to keep up with our discussion, but we'll help him out. The condescension and mockery in their voices were unmistakable. The whole class was watching. I looked at her beautiful, disingenuous face, at the gloating expressions of the people around her. All the frustration, anger, and humiliation I had been bottling up for weeks finally reached its breaking point. I shot up from my chair, the legs scraping loudly against the floor. No, thanks, I said, my voice hoarse from suppressed rage. I'll work alone. Without another glance at anyone, I grabbed my textbook and walked out of the classroom. Behind me, I could hear the buzz of gossip and the undisguised laughter of Isabella and her friends. Outside, the cool wind hit my face, slightly calming the inferno raging inside me. I had nowhere to go. I didn't want to go back to the dorm and face the pitying or prying looks of my roommates. On autopilot, I found myself walking to the university basketball courts. A few guys from the varsity team were playing a pickup game, their movements athletic and aggressive, a blur of sweat and testosterone. I stood on the sidelines, watching the ball arc through the air, my mind a chaotic mess. Suddenly, the ball came flying directly at me, hard and fast. Hey, watch out, someone yelled. I instinctively threw my arms up to block it. Thwack! The ball slammed into my forearm, sending a jolt of pain up my arm. A tall, muscular guy jogged over. It was Brad Thompson, the star forward of the basketball team, known for his hot temper and for being one of Isabella Vance's most ardent admirers. He picked up the ball, sneering at me. Well, if it isn't. Mr. Vance himself. Slumming it out here with us common folk, are we? His teammates gathered behind him, their expressions hostile. I knew it wasn't an accident. Brad was one of the few people who had replied to the gossip threads using his real name, and his comments about me had been the most vicious. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention, I muttered, not wanting to cause a scene. I turned to leave. Hold it, Brad said, blocking my path with the basketball. You bump into someone, and all you say is sorry. I guess that's how things work when you're a big shot, huh? What do you want? I stopped, my hands balling into fists. Nothing, Brad said, tossing the ball to a teammate. He stepped closer, getting right in my face, his voice low and menacing. I just don't like you. You're a broke loser pretending to be something you're not. You think you're a real man, latching onto a woman to get ahead. His words were like poison darts, piercing through my last shred of self-control. Say that again, I said, looking him dead in the eye. I said, you're nothing but a gold-digging, spineless leech. Brad enunciated every word, spittle flying from his mouth. Stay away from Isabella. You hear me? Or I'll beat the crap out of you every time I see you. His teammates started laughing and jeering. Yeah, Brad, teach him a lesson. Put him in his place. A wave of hot blood rushed to my head, and all my reason snapped. Screw being the better man. Screw being the godson of a wealthy family. I was done. Go to hell. I roared, and with every ounce of strength I had, I threw a punch straight into Brad Thompson's smug, arrogant face. 9. Court collision. Crack. The sickening thud of knuckle-hitting bone and teeth echoed across the court. Brad clearly hadn't expected me to swing first. In his mind, a gold-digging charity case like me wouldn't dare lay a hand on him. The punch caught him completely off guard, sending him stumbling backward. Blood instantly welled from a cut on his lip. The basketball court fell silent. Everyone, including Brad's teammates and a handful of students watching from the sidelines, was frozen in shock. Brad touched his lip, saw the blood on his fingers, and his eyes turned crimson with rage. You son of a bitch, you hit me. He roared, charging at me like a bull. I knew fighting was stupid. I knew throwing the first punch made me the bad guy. I knew I probably couldn't win. But in that moment, to hell with logic. To hell with the consequences. I was done being pushed around. All the pent-up anger and humiliation erupted like a volcano. My mind went blank, replaced by a raw, primal instinct to fight back. I dodged his wild haymaker and rammed my elbow into his ribs. Brad grunted in pain, which only made him angrier. He used his superior size and strength to wrap his arms around my waist, trying to tackle me to the ground. We crashed to the asphalt, a tangled mess of limbs. It wasn't a fight. It was a brawl, a dirty, desperate scrap. Fists, elbows, knees, we used whatever we could to hurt each other. The onlookers snapped out of their shock. Some gasped, others whistled and cheered. Brad's teammates started to move in to help him. "Stay the hell back," Brad yelled, still grappling with me. "This piece of trash is mine." I took a few hard shots to the face. It stung like hell, and I could taste the metallic tang of blood in my mouth. But I gritted my teeth and kept fighting back. His punches were heavy, making my vision swim, but with every swing I took, I could feel the poison draining out of me. So this is what it felt like to fight back. To not just take it, to not just endure. It felt damn good. We rolled across the court, knocking over a rack of water bottles that scattered across the ground. More and more people started to gather, some pulling out their phones to record. Holy crap. Look, Ethan Hayes is fighting Brad Thompson. No way, Ethan actually has the balls to fight Brad. He's holding his own. He's not as much of a wimp as everyone said. This is bad. Brad's a varsity athlete. Ethan is going to get expelled. In the chaos, I lost track of how many times I was hit or how many times I landed a punch. All I knew was that every inch of my body ached and my strength was fading fast. Suddenly, a shrill whistle cut through the air. "Hey, break it up now." Campus security guards ran onto the court, forcefully pulling us apart. Brad and I were both breathing heavily, our faces bruised and bloody, our clothes torn. We glared at each other like two feral dogs, ready to go at it again. "What the hell is going on here? Why are you fighting?" the head of security demanded. "He started it," Brad immediately shouted, pointing to his bleeding lip and bruised cheek. "I was just minding my own business, and he attacked me for no reason." "That's bullshit," I spat, trying to catch my breath. "You provoked me. You threw the ball at me and started running your mouth." "Oh yeah? Who saw that? Can anyone prove it?" Brad shot a look at his teammates. They immediately backed him up. "Yeah, Ethan started it. We were just playing, and he went crazy and attacked Brad. We all saw it." The security chief frowned, looking at me. "What about you? Do you have any witnesses?" The students in the crowd just looked at each other, avoiding my gaze. No one wanted to get on the bad side of Brad and his jock friends. My heart sank. Of course. Just then, a small voice piped up. I saw it." The crowd parted, and Leo squeezed his way to the front. His face was pale, but he stood his ground. Brad started it. He was taunting Ethan and threw the ball at him first. Ethan was just defending himself. Brad shot Leo a murderous glare. Leo flinched but didn't back down. The security chief looked from my injuries to Brad's. Brad definitely looked worse for wear. He waved his hand dismissively. "All right, I don't care who started it. Fighting on campus is a violation of the student code of conduct. Both of you, come with me to the security office. I'm calling your academic advisors." Security escorted Brad and me away. Even on the walkover, Brad was still trying to intimidate me with his glares. At the security office, we filled out incident reports, each telling our own version of the story. My advisor arrived quickly. He looked shocked and exasperated to see the state I was in. Then, Eleanor's call came into my advisor's cell phone. I don't know what she said, but I watched my advisor's expression shift, his tone becoming more and more deferential. In the end, the official decision came down. It was a mutual altercation, no serious injuries. We were both given a verbal warning and told to pay for our own medical expenses. Case closed. Brad was clearly furious with the slap on the wrist, but it seemed my advisor had given him a quiet warning. He shot me one last hateful look and stormed out. After leaving the office, my advisor patted me on the shoulder, his expression complicated. "Ethan, you need to be more careful. This could have been a lot worse. Mrs. Vance was very worried about you." I just looked at the ground, saying nothing. I knew it was Eleanor's influence that had gotten me off so easily. Back in the dorm, Leo immediately got out the first aid kit. "Dude, you're insane. You know how big Brad is? What were you thinking?" he said, dabbing my cuts with antiseptic. I just snapped. I hissed as the disinfectant stung my wounds. But it was awesome. Leo's excitement returned. "You should have seen the look on Brad's face. Huh. I bet he won't be running his mouth anymore. The gossip on the forum has already changed. People are saying you've got guts." I gave a weak, bitter smile. Guts. It was just a moment of blind rage. That evening, the bruises on my face still fresh, Eleanor called. "Ethan, are you badly hurt? Why did you get into a fight? Did someone bully you? You tell me who it was and I'll handle them." Her voice was a mix of anxiety and maternal anger. "I'm fine, godmother, just a few scratches. It was just a disagreement. It's been resolved," I said, not wanting to make a bigger deal out of it. "Are you sure? Don't lie to me. Was it because of Isabella?" she asked after a moment of silence. I hesitated, which was answer enough. I heard her sigh on the other end of the line. "You've been through too much, son. I understand." I wasn't sure what she understood. But the next day, the news spread like wildfire. Brad Thompson had been stripped of all academic and athletic honor for the semester and given a formal disciplinary warning for multiple violations of the Student Code of Conduct, including some old, conveniently unearthed accusations of cheating on a physical fitness test. As for Isabella, Eleanor formally notified her that all her trust funds and access to her real estate holdings were being frozen until she learned to respect her family. The fight had left us both battered and bruised, but it seemed to have shifted something. Now, when some people looked at me, there was a new glint of fear in their eyes. And the war between Isabella and me had just entered a new phase. 10. His shadow. After the fight with Brad, opinions about me on campus split into two distinct camps. One group saw me as a classic case of someone with connections throwing their weight around. They avoided me more than ever. The other group, mostly students from ordinary backgrounds who had also felt the sting of being bullied, looked at me with a newfound respect. Some even came up to me in private to say, "Good for you," or "That was satisfying to watch." Isabella, for her part, quieted down significantly. Eleanor freezing her assets was a direct hit to her lifestyle. She stopped her friends from posting anonymous attack threads on the forums and ceased her public displays of humiliation. But the relationship between us became colder than ever. At the villa, unless Eleanor was present, she wouldn't speak a single word to me. She wouldn't even look at me. It was like I was a ghost. This cold, silent treatment was, in some ways, more suffocating than open hostility. Eleanor tried desperately to mend the rift, organizing a series of mandatory family activities. One weekend, she dragged us to a classical music concert. I was bored out of my mind and nearly fell asleep. Isabella wore sunglasses the entire time, completely checked out. Another time, she made Isabella take me to a yacht party hosted by one of her friends. It was my first exposure to the leisure activities of the truly wealthy. A massive luxury yacht, champagne towers, beautiful girls in bikinis, and well-dressed trust fund kids making effortless conversation. The moment Isabella stepped onto the yacht, she was surrounded by her friends, the queen holding court. She changed into a stylish swimsuit that showed off her perfect figure and instantly became the center of attention. She was laughing, radiant, a completely different person from the ice princess she was at home. I was left completely alone, an awkward outsider in ill-fitting swim trunks. I stood on the deck, not knowing what to do. No one spoke to me. They just shot me curious, speculative, and faintly contemptuous glances. I overheard snippets of their conversations. "So that's Isabella's godbrother? He looks so plain. How'd he get mixed up with the Van Cess? I heard he's tough, though. Beat up Brad Thompson. TSK, a barbarian." I grabbed a glass of orange juice and retreated to the railing, staring out at the blue ocean, feeling like a complete joke. "Hiding out over here?" a calm voice asked beside me. I turned to see a man a few years older than me. He was wearing a tasteful polo shirt and had a calm, confident air about him. His smile was warm and genuine. "Just getting some air," I mumbled. "I am Caleb Sterling, a friend of Isabella's older brother." He introduced himself, offering me a glass of champagne. "Try this. It's better than orange juice." Thanks, but I don't drink, I said, waving it away. He just smiled, not pushing it. He took a sip of his own drink, leaning against the railing. Don't mind them. This crowd can be a bit cliquey. You get used to it. His demeanor was so natural, without a hint of the condescension or forced friendliness I had gotten from others, that I found myself relaxing a little. It's kind of tough, I admitted. Isabella can be a bit proud. She's been spoiled her whole life, but she doesn't have a mean bone in her body, Caleb said, looking over at Isabella, who was now laughing with her friends. He sounded like a patient older brother. Just give her some time. I didn't say anything, not a mean bone in her body. Then what were the anonymous forum posts and the deliberate public humiliations? Caleb seemed to read my mind. He chuckled. Mrs. Vance can be a bit forceful. She threw you into this world without considering if you were ready or how Isabella would feel. Conflict was inevitable. He was direct, but in a way that felt insightful and trustworthy. We chatted for a while. He did most of the talking, telling me about the yacht, sharing some interesting stories about sailing. He was a good conversationalist, never letting things get awkward. It was the first time since I had entered the Van Cess world that I had a normal, respectful conversation with someone from that circle. Before the party ended, he handed me a business card. If you ever run into any trouble at school or anywhere else, give me a call. Her brother, Alexander, and I are good friends. His brother is my brother, Alexander Vance, Isabella's actual brother, who was managing the family's business overseas. I had heard of him, but never met him. I took the card. It was simple, just a name and a number. Thanks. Try to have some fun, he said, patting me on the shoulder before walking away. I watched him go, a strange feeling in my gut. He seemed different from the rest of them. On the car ride home, for the first time, Isabella spoke to me without being prompted. Her tone was dripping with sarcasm. You work fast. Already managed to cozy up to Caleb Sterling. I didn't bother to reply, just closed my eyes and pretended to sleep. She let out a derisive snort and said nothing more. After the party, Caleb started contacting me occasionally. Sometimes he'd ask how I was adjusting to university life. Other times he'd share an interesting article or a new song. Sometimes it was just a simple, how's it going? His attention was perfectly measured. Never so much that it felt intrusive, but never so little that it felt distant. He was like the kind, supportive older brother I never had. Gradually, I started to let my guard down around him. In this hostile new world, he felt like a lifeline. I found myself complaining to him about difficult classes, telling him stories about weird customers at my part-time job, without going into specifics, and even occasionally mentioning the icy stalemate between Isabella and me. He was always a patient listener, offering sound advice or simply a sympathetic ear. I'll talk to Isabella for you, he said once. She was actually a very sweet kid. It's just these past few years. You don't have to do that, Caleb. It's fine, I said. I didn't want to be indebted to him. It's no trouble at all, he said gently. I thought I had finally found someone who understood me, someone I could trust. Until the day I overheard his phone call. Eleanor had forgotten an important file and asked me to bring it to her at the office. When I got there, she was pulled into an emergency meeting and told me to wait in her office. I sat on the plush sofa in her luxurious corner office, marveling once again at the vast difference between our worlds. I got bored of waiting and decided to find the restroom. As I walked toward the private lounge area outside her office, I heard Caleb's voice. He was on the balcony, speaking in a low, hushed tone, but I could still make out fragments of his conversation. Don't worry, I've got him handled. The kid's naive, easy to get information from. Eleanor Vance treats him like gold. He's the perfect way in. Isabella, that spoiled brat. Just have to keep her happy. The real target is inside information on the new Vance project. He's the key. I froze, my blood turning to ice. Yeah, I know, I won't let him get suspicious. He's just a pawn. A pawn. The word was like a poison-tipped icicle, stabbing me in the heart. I leaned against the cold wall, my hands and feet numb. So that's what this was. All the kindness, the concern, the understanding. It was all an act. He had gotten close to me, helped me, all to use me as a tool to get corporate secret from Eleanor. Or maybe for something even worse. A wave of crushing disappointment and white-hot anger washed over me. The one person I thought I could trust was just another snake in the grass, part of a deeper, dirtier game. This world, was there anything in it that wasn't fake? I silently retreated back to the office and sat on the sofa. My heart was pounding, but I forced my face to remain calm. I couldn't trust anyone. Caleb, Isabella, this entire world. They all wore masks. I had to be more careful. 11. The birthday disaster. Eleanor's birthday was approaching. She decided to host a small but elegant party at the villa, inviting only her closest family and friends. I knew this was a big deal for her. It would be my first formal introduction to her inner circle as her godson. The pressure was immense. Isabella was ordered home a few days early to help prepare. She was clearly still reluctant, but didn't dare defy her mother. We maintained our silent truce, at least when Eleanor was watching. On the night of the party, I put on the most expensive suit Eleanor had bought for me and practiced a polite smile in the mirror 100 times. I couldn't embarrass her. The villa was beautifully decorated with flowers, soft lighting, and catered food. The guest list was small, but everyone was clearly influential, their attire and conversation exuding wealth and power. Eleanor, stunning in a floor-length gown, kept me by her side, introducing me to each guest. "This is my godson, Ethan. Such a kind and wonderful young man." The guests would offer polite, practiced smiles and words of praise, but I could feel their eyes on me, sizing me up like an unexpected and unidentifiable piece of art. Isabella stood on her mother's other side, a perfect picture of a dutiful daughter in a beautiful evening dress, her smile sweet and her manners impeccable. Only when no one was looking would her eyes betray her true feelings with a flash of ice. Caleb was there too. He greeted me with the same warm, friendly smile as always. "Ethan, you look sharp tonight." Looking at his face, I felt a wave of nausea, but I forced a smile. "You too, Caleb." Halfway through the party, it was time for gifts. The guests presented their offerings: jewelry, antiques, rare paintings, limited edition luxury goods, each one worth a small fortune. Isabella gave her mother a set of exquisite, antique porcelain teacups, knowing she had recently taken up an interest in tea ceremonies. Eleanor was delighted. Then it was my turn. All eyes were on me. I took a deep breath and presented my gift. It was a simple, plain cardboard box. I saw Isabella's lip curl in a barely perceptible sneer, as if she was expecting me to produce something embarrassing and cheap. Eleanor smiled and opened it right there. Inside, there was no jewelry, no luxury item. Just a hand-knitted wool scarf and a pair of matching, slightly clumsy-looking woolen gloves. The colors were warm and pleasant, but the craftsmanship was amateur at best. Compared to the other opulent gifts, it looked pitifully shabby. A brief, awkward silence fell over the room. I could hear a few quiet gasps and a stifled snicker. The mockery in Isabella's eyes was undisguised. But Eleanor just stared at the gift, her fingers gently tracing the uneven stitches of the scarf. "Godmother," I began, my voice dry with nerves. I learned how to knit from my grandmother. She always said that handmade gifts are the best because they come from the heart. I'm not very good at it, so please don't mind the mistakes. Winter is coming, and you always leave for work so early. I just wanted you to have something to keep you warm. I had spent several sleepless nights on this, unraveling and reknitting, my fingers pricked raw by the needles. It was the most precious, most sincere thing I had to offer. Eleanor looked down at the scarf and gloves, her shoulders trembling slightly. The room was deathly quiet. Suddenly, a single tear fell onto the soft wool. Then another and another. Eleanor was crying. She looked up, her eyes swimming with tears, and pulled me into a tight embrace. Her voice was choked with emotion. "Oh, my dear boy, this is the best, the absolute best gift I have ever received in my entire life. The best." She held me so tightly, as if I were a long-lost treasure. The entire room was stunned. The looks of ridicule on the guests' faces were replaced by a complex mixture of emotions. Isabella's sneer froze on her face. She stared in disbelief at her mother's emotional outburst. Caleb stood a short distance away, his expression unreadable. Eleanor was sobbing uncontrollably, stroking the scarf over and over. Handmade is the most precious. When I was a little girl, my mother used to knit for me too. After she was gone, She couldn't finish her sentence. In that moment, I knew I had done the right thing. I had accidentally touched upon the most vulnerable, most cherished part of her heart. For the rest of the evening, Eleanor wore the scarf, proudly showing it off to everyone. Look what my son made for me. Her friends surrounded me, their praise now sounding much more genuine. Isabella was left alone, her face a mask of bitter resentment. After the guests had left, Eleanor was still emotional, holding my hand and telling me stories. Isabella's cold voice cut through the warm atmosphere. Well played, Ethan. You really know how to play the part. The sob story, the pity play. It's impressive. You managed to fool my mother with a cheap, ugly scarf. The warmth in the room instantly evaporated. Eleanor's face hardened. Isabella, how dare you speak like that? Am I wrong? Isabella shot back, all her pent-up frustration finally boiling over. He knows you fall for this kind of thing. He puts on this act of the pure, devoted son, but who knows what he's really after? Only you would treat a piece of cheap junk like a treasure. Junk. Eleanor was shaking with rage. She raised her hand. Godmother. I quickly stepped between them. Eleanor lowered her hand, her disappointment in her daughter palpable. Isabella, I have spoiled you rotten. All you know how to do is spend money on cold, heartless things. Do you have even half the sincerity that Ethan has? Sincerity, how much is his sincerity worth? Isabella shrieked. He's a liar. He's fooled all of you. Get out. Go to your room. Eleanor roared. Isabella shot me a look of pure hatred before running upstairs. Another night ending in a bitter fight. Eleanor sank onto the sofa, rubbing her temples. Ethan, I'm so sorry. She's just... It's okay, Godmother, I said softly. I'll go check on her. I poured a glass of warm milk and went upstairs. I knocked on Isabella's door. No answer. I hesitated for a moment, then pushed the door open. She was sitting on the window seat with her back to me, staring out at the night sky. Her shoulders were shaking. She was crying. I placed the milk on her nightstand. Get out, she said, her voice hoarse and thick with tears. I didn't move. I said, get out. Don't you understand English? Get the hell out. She spun around and threw a pillow at me. It was a soft, decorative pillow and landed harmlessly at my feet. Her makeup was smeared. Her eyes were red and swollen. All her usual pride and arrogance were gone. She just looked like a hurt little girl. Isabella, I said, using her full name for the first time. We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you, she snapped, turning away again. Why do you hate me so much? I asked bluntly. Is it just because your mom is nice to me? Do you think I'm stealing her from you? She whipped her head back around as if I had struck a nerve. Isn't that what you're doing? Ever since you showed up, my mom only has eyes for you. Everything is about you. Everything has to be shared with you. She yells at me for you. She punishes me for you. She freezes my accounts for you. What gives you the right? You're just an outsider. She was shouting now, fresh tears streaming down her face. I never wanted to steal anything from anyone, I said, looking her straight in the eye. I just saved her, and then all of this happened. I didn't have any control over it. Ah, easy for you to say, she sneered. I didn't see you refusing any of the perks. I tried to refuse. I raised my voice. But I couldn't. You know your mother better than I do. When she makes up her mind, can anyone change it? She was silent, unable to argue. Yes, I'm poor. I've never had nice things. When someone suddenly shoves all this luxury in my face, of course I'm going to be overwhelmed and uncomfortable. But I'm not shameless. I continued, all my own frustrations pouring out. Do you think I enjoy wearing these clothes that don't feel like me? Using all this stuff I don't even know how to operate. Being stared at and laughed at by you and your friends like I'm some kind of circus freak. Being treated like a thief in my own home. Isabella bit her lip, saying nothing. That scarf. I stayed up for nights knitting that. My grandmother taught me. I just wanted to give your mother a heartfelt gift. It wasn't some calculated, manipulative scheme. My own voice started to crack. Yes, it's not expensive. It can't compare to your jewels and antiques. But it was the only thing I had that was truly mine to give. I took a deep, shaky breath, trying to steady myself. Isabella, I never wanted to replace you. You're a daughter. No one can ever replace you. I was just trying to find a way to breathe in this strange new world. After I said my piece, I turned and left the room. As the door clicked shut behind me, I thought I heard the sound of a muffled sob. I didn't know if my words would make any difference. Probably not, but at least I had finally said them. In the days following the birthday party, the atmosphere in the villa remained tense. but something had shifted. Isabella was no longer openly hostile towards me, though she was still distant. But in her coldness, there seemed to be less animosity and more, a sort of conflicted curiosity. Once, when I poured her a glass of water, she mumbled a quiet thanks, though she still wouldn't look at me. When Eleanor insisted we take the same car to campus, she no longer refused, just stared out the window the entire ride. The change was subtle, but I could feel it. Eleanor was consumed with a major project at work and didn't seem to notice the slight thaw in our Cold War. Caleb, on the other hand, started contacting me more frequently. He seemed very interested in whether my relationship with Isabella was improving. He would casually ask about Eleanor's mood and, more pointedly, about the progress of the new project at Vance Holdings. I played along, feeding him vague, non-essential information to keep him interested. I knew he was getting ready to make his move. I had to be careful not to arouse his suspicion. At the same time, I started doing some digging of my own. I discovered that he wasn't just close to me. He was also in frequent contact with a senior executive at Vance Holdings. Through some careful, indirect questioning of Eleanor's assistant, and by overhearing snippets of phone calls from outside her study, I identified the likely accomplice, a vice president in the project development department named Lee. I jotted down these scraps of information, but I didn't know who to trust or what to do with them. Should I tell Eleanor? She was so busy, and what if I was wrong? What if I tipped them off? While I was debating my next move, disaster struck. At a critical phase of Eleanor's new project, the core data was leaked. A competitor launched a nearly identical product plan, causing Vance Holdings stock to plummet and resulting in massive financial losses. The company was in an uproar, and somehow, all the evidence seemed to point to me. Someone happened to see me acting suspiciously outside Eleanor's study. Someone else confirmed that I had recently been in contact with people from the competitor's company, a meeting Caleb had probably arranged. Even the large, unexplained wire transfers from Eleanor in my bank account were now being painted as bribes. The rumors started swirling again, this time more vicious than ever. I knew it. He's a traitor. Mrs. Vance treated him so well, and this is how he repays her, by selling out her company. He'd do anything for money. They should call the police and have him arrested. I sat in my dorm room, staring at the hateful comments on the forum and the text from my advisor telling me to come to his office to discuss the situation, a cold dread spreading through my body. I knew this was Caleb's doing. He was setting me up to be the fall guy. Eleanor called. Her voice was weary, and for the first time, I heard a faint trace of doubt. Ethan, the things on the forum. Do you know anything about this? At the office. Even she was starting to doubt me. My heart sank. Godmother, it wasn't me, I said, my voice hoarse. It was a weak defense, and I knew it. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Just come home for now. After I hung up, I sat frozen in my chair. Leo was pacing anxiously. Ethan, this is obviously a setup. You have to explain everything to Mrs. Vance. Explain what? That it was Caleb? I had no proof. All the fabricated evidence against me was circumstantial but convincing. Just then, my phone rang again. It was an unknown number. I answered it. Is this Ethan Hayes? A hesitant female voice asked. It sounded vaguely familiar. This is Chloe Martin. I'm a friend of Isabella's. We met at the yacht party. I vaguely remembered her, a quiet, reserved girl in Isabella's clique. What is it? I think I saw something. About the data leak, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I don't know who to tell. I thought you should know. My heart skipped a beat. What did you see? A few nights ago, I saw Caleb Sterling talking to that VP, Mr. Lee, in the alley behind the Night Owl bar. They looked really secretive. And then yesterday, I overheard Caleb on the phone, and he mentioned something about data, taken care of, and framing someone. She said quickly, her voice full of anxiety. I didn't want to get involved, but when I saw what they were saying about you on the forum, it just didn't seem right. You don't seem like that kind of person. Caleb and VP Lee. Chloe's testimony wasn't hard evidence, but it was a start. Thank you, Chloe. Thank you so much. I said, my voice filled with relief. Just be careful. Caleb's family. They're very powerful, she whispered, then quickly hung up. I clutched my phone, taking a deep breath. I couldn't just sit here and wait for the axe to fall. I bolted out of the dorm and ran towards the arts building, where Isabella often spent her afternoons in the studio. I had to find her. Right now, she was the only one who might believe me, or, at the very least, be willing to listen for the sake of her family's company. I found her in the studio, staring blankly at a canvas. She looked troubled. She must have heard the news about the company. She frowned when she saw me burst in. "What are you?" "Isabella, help me." I cut her off, my words tumbling out in a rush. "I know who leaked the data. It was Caleb. He's working with VP Lee. They're trying to frame me." Isabella's eyes widened in shock. "What are you talking about?" "Caleb, that's impossible. I don't have time to explain everything. I have a witness who saw them meeting in secret. Chloe Martin, your friend." I said desperately, "He's probably destroying evidence as we speak. We have to tell your mother, or find proof now." Isabella stared at me, her face a whirlwind of disbelief and conflict. Caleb was her brother's best friend, a man who had been like an older brother to her for her entire life. She couldn't believe he would do something like this. But the company was in jeopardy, and my eyes were filled with a desperate sincerity. She gritted her teeth and stood up. "Let's go. We have to find Mom. She's in a meeting at the office today." For the first time, we were a team. We ran out of the studio, hailed a cab, and raced towards the Vance Holdings headquarters. On the way, I quickly explained my suspicions about Caleb and what Chloe had told me. Isabella listened, her face growing paler and paler, her hands twisting the fabric of her dress. When we got to the office, we ran straight to the boardroom. Eleanor was in a tense meeting with a group of senior executives. They all stared in shock as we burst in. "Mom," Isabella spoke first, her voice sharp and serious. "The data leak. It might have been Caleb. Ethan found something." The boardroom erupted in murmurs. Eleanor looked at me, stunned. I quickly and clearly laid out my suspicions, Chloe's testimony, and my observations about the unusual contact between Caleb and VP Lee. "That's absurd." VP Lee jumped to his feet, his face ashen. "He's lying. This is a pathetic attempt to deflect blame. If it's a lie, we can find out easily enough." I stared him down, my voice unwavering. "Check your bank records. Check your call logs with Caleb Sterling. Check the security footage from the alley behind the Night Owl bar. I doubt it's been completely erased yet." The color drained from VP Lee's face. He started to sweat. His reaction said it all. Eleanor's eyes turned sharp as daggers. She slammed her hand on the table. "Call the police. Detain Mr. Lee. Get IT to recover all relevant security footage and records. Now. And get our legal team in here." The boardroom descended into chaos. Eleanor walked over to me, her expression a mix of shock, fear, and deep, profound guilt. "Ethan, let's deal with this first, godmother," I said, cutting her off. She nodded grimly. The police arrived quickly and took the defeated-looking VP Lee into custody. The IT department worked frantically to recover the evidence. Caleb must have been tipped off. He was apprehended at the airport trying to flee the country. A case of corporate espionage that had threatened to cripple the company was solved in a matter of hours. The evidence was undeniable. Caleb and Leah conspired to steal trade secrets and had planned to use me as their scapegoat. The truth was out. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of the Vance Holdings building, looking down at the bustling city below, and let out a long, shaky breath. My back was drenched in a cold sweat. That was too close. I had come dangerously close to losing everything. 13. Protecting family. The corporate espionage case at Vance Holdings sent shockwaves through the city's business community. The Sterling family and Vice President Lee paid a heavy price. Eleanor Vance was relentless, pursuing every legal avenue to ensure that all parties involved were held accountable. The immediate crisis was averted, but the company had suffered significant losses and would need time to recover. My name was completely cleared. The attack threads on the campus forum vanished, replaced by posts of apology and awe. Plot twist. Ethan Hayes was framed. He's a hero. OMG, this is like a movie. Ethan is a legend. To Ethan Hayes, I'm so sorry. We were wrong about you. Officially an Ethan Hayes fan, he's smart and brave. Leo showed me the posts on his phone, beaming with pride. I just smiled. It didn't mean much. The praise, like the slander that came before it, was fickle. But within the Vance family, everything had changed. Eleanor's feelings for me deepened from simple affection to a profound sense of trust and reliance. She later admitted that she had doubted me for a fleeting moment, a lapse in faith that now filled her with guilt. She was more sorry that I'd been dragged into such a sordid affair. At a formal family meeting, she announced that I would be granted a share of the inheritance, smaller than that of Isabella and her brother, but significant enough to leave the assembled relatives speechless. This time, no one dared to object. The biggest change, however, was in Isabella. She sought me out herself. We stood on the roof of the arts building, the wind whipping through her long hair. She looked at me, her expression a complex mixture of awkwardness and remorse. The ice in her eyes had melted. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice soft but clear. "I was wrong about you. And thank you for what you did for the company and for my mom." It was the first time she had ever spoken to me with such sincerity, the first time she had ever truly apologized. "It's okay," I said with a shrug. "I was just trying to clear my name." She was quiet for a moment, looking down at her shoes. "Actually, I think I knew something was wrong with Caleb." I looked at her, surprised. I overheard him on the phone a few times. He sounded shady, but I didn't think much of it. I thought it was just business. She bit her lip. "If I had been more suspicious, if I had told you, maybe none of this would have happened." "It's not your fault," I said. "He was a good actor." We stood side by side, watching the sunset, the old tension between us finally gone. "You know," she said suddenly, her tone self-deprecating, "the reason I hated you so much, it wasn't just about my mom." I looked at her, waiting. "I think I was jealous," she admitted, the words barely a whisper. "When you came along, my mom gave you so much of her attention, so freely. It felt like my world was being invaded. And you were so real. Real?" I asked, confused. "Yeah," she nodded. "You were poor, but you weren't ashamed of it. You worked part-time jobs, you worried about money, you knitted a scarf with your own hands. All the things I thought were lame and unsophisticated, they had so much life in them." She paused, her voice even quieter. "Unlike me, my whole life, I felt like a doll in a glass case. All I know how to do is spend money. Even my attempts to hurt you were just petty and childish." I was stunned. I never expected her to be so introspective. I didn't know what to say. So, she looked up at me, a faint light in her eyes. Will you teach me?" "Teach you what?" "How to be a normal person. How to earn my own money." She looked embarrassed, but held my gaze. I was taken aback for a second. Then I smiled. "Sure, but it's hard work." "I'm not afraid of hard work," she said, lifting her chin, a flash of the old, proud Isabella returning, but her eyes were different now. From that day on, our relationship began to heal in a strange and unexpected way. She actually started asking me about part-time jobs, though her complete ignorance of hourly wages and manual labor led to some hilarious situations. She let me take her to a cheap noodle place off campus. She complained that it was unsanitary, while simultaneously slurping down her spicy noodles, her nose running. She even started to curb her extravagant spending, a process she found incredibly difficult. We still argued, we still bickered, but the malice was gone. We were more like normal siblings. Eleanor was overjoyed to see the change in us. The villa was filled with laughter for the first time. I thought our lives had finally found a peaceful rhythm. Until one weekend, when the three of us were driving home from dinner. As our car turned onto a quiet street near the villa, a black van suddenly sped out from a side road and slammed into the rear of our car. Crash! The sound was deafening. Our car spun out of control, crashing into the trees on the side of the road. The airbags deployed with a violent hiss, knocking the wind out of me and leaving my head spinning. I could hear Isabella's terrified screams and Eleanor's pain gasp. "Godmother! Isabella, are you okay?" I yelled. I am okay." Eleanor's voice was strained. "My foot. I think it's stuck." Isabella sobbed. I shook my head, trying to clear it. Through the shattered window, I saw several masked men with baseball bats jump out of the van and run towards us. Was this an accident? Or it hit me in an instant. This was revenge. From Caleb's family. They wouldn't dare touch Eleanor, so they were coming for me. Or maybe they were trying to kidnap us. "Lock the doors," I shouted, but it was too late. One of the thugs smashed the driver's side window with his bat and reached in to unlock the door. Our driver was unconscious from the impact. Eleanor fumbled for her phone to call 911, but another man started smashing her window. Isabella was pale with terror, screaming uncontrollably. A surge of adrenaline shot through me, overriding my fear with a white-hot rage. They were trying to hurt my family, my godmother and Isabella. No one's going to touch them. Stay down, I yelled at them. I unbuckled my seatbelt, and on pure instinct, I scrambled through the broken window, grabbed the arm of the man trying to open the door, and bit down hard. AGH, he howled in pain, yanking his arm back. I used the opportunity to shove the door open, knocking him off balance, and scrambled out of the car. Ethan, get back in here. Eleanor screamed in terror. I stood there, unarmed, facing down 4 or 5 burly men. My heart was pounding, but my eyes were wild, like a cornered animal. You son of a bitch! You're dead, the man I'd bitten yelled, clutching his bleeding wrist as he swung his bat at my head. I ducked, grabbed his arm, and used his own momentum to twist it behind his back, driving my knee into his stomach. It was a dirty move I had learned from breaking up fights at the diner. He grunted and dropped the bat. I snatched it up and swung at the next man, who came at me. They swarmed me, their bats landing heavy blows on my back and shoulders. The pain was excruciating, but I barely felt it. I was running on pure adrenaline, swinging wildly, a human shield in front of the car door. I couldn't back down. Not an inch. The people I had to protect were right behind me. One of the men tried to circle around to Isabella's side. My vision turned red. I lunged at him, tackling him around the waist and slamming him to the ground. Another bat came down hard across my back. I tasted blood and nearly blacked out. Ethan, I heard Eleanor's desperate cry. In the distance, a siren wailed. The thug heard it too. They panicked and started to run. You're not getting away, I yelled, grabbing onto one of their legs. The police arrived and quickly subdued the remaining attackers. My body was a canvas of pain. My strength gave out, and I collapsed to the ground, my vision fading. Eleanor and Isabella stumbled out of the car and rushed to my side. Ethan, are you okay? Don't you scare me like this. Eleanor cradled my head in her lap, tears streaming down her face. Brother, are you okay? Isabella was sobbing, the word brother coming out clear and desperate for the first time. I managed a weak smile. I'm okay. It's my job to protect you. And then everything went black. The last thing I heard before I passed out was Isabella's choked cry. He's my brother, my real brother. I woke up in a private hospital room, every muscle in my body screaming in protest. Eleanor and Isabella were at my bedside, their eyes red and swollen from crying. He's awake. Doctor, he's awake. Eleanor cried out in relief when she saw my eyes flutter open. A doctor came in and, after a quick examination, confirmed that I had nothing more than extensive bruising and a mild concussion. I will be fine with some rest. Only then did Eleanor finally allow herself to relax, and she immediately started crying again. You foolish boy, why would you do something so dangerous? If anything had happened to you, what would I do? I wasn't thinking. I said, my voice hoarse. Isabella handed me a glass of water, her eyes still red. Thank you, brother, she whispered. This time, the word felt natural, sincere. I smiled. We're family. We don't have to thank each other. That shared near-death experience seemed to have shattered the last remaining wall between us. The police investigation confirmed our suspicions. The attack had been orchestrated by Caleb's family, a desperate and foolish attempt at revenge, or to use me as leverage against Eleanor. They paid an even heavier price for their mistake. Eleanor used all her resources to ensure the Sterling family's business empire was dismantled. After I was discharged from the hospital, life finally settled into a new, comfortable normal. My relationship with Isabella blossomed. She would tag along with me to my part-time job, more of a hindrance than a help, but her heart was in the right place. We would fight over the TV remote. She would force me to praise her terrible baking attempts, and sometimes, when I was up late studying, she would quietly leave a snack by my door. We had become real siblings, a chaotic, bickering but deeply loving pair. One weekend evening, Eleanor cooked dinner for us. It was mostly edible. Afterwards, we were all sprawled out on the living room floor, watching a movie, the atmosphere warm and peaceful. Suddenly, Isabella asked, "Hey bro, I've been meaning to ask. That night you saved Mom, why did you leave the hospital and give them a fake name?" Eleanor looked at me curiously. "Yes, Ethan, I could never find you." I scratched my head, a little embarrassed. "Well, I was worried about getting into trouble. You were dressed so simply, and after I paid for the ER admission, I was worried that if things didn't go well, your family might blame me. I was just a broke student. I couldn't afford a lawsuit." Eleanor stared at me, then burst out laughing. "Oh, you silly boy, did it never occur to you that I might be wealthy and would reward you handsomely?" "Honestly, no," I admitted. "I was just focused on getting you help. I wasn't looking for a reward. When I found out who you were, I was terrified." Isabella giggled. "So you weren't some master schemer. You were just a clueless guy who stumbled into good luck." "Hey, watch it, you," I said, playfully messing up her hair. She laughed and dodged away. Eleanor watched us, her eyes full of love and a touch of melancholy. It was fate. The universe saw how much I had lost, and it sent Ethan to me to make things right. Her expression clouded over for a moment, as if she was remembering something painful. Isabella and I fell silent. "Godmother," I said, finally asking the question that had been weighing on my mind for months. Why have you been so good to me? Better than a real mother would be to her own son. Was it really just because I saved your life?" The gratitude she had shown me had always felt excessive. There were many ways to repay a debt. What she had given me felt like so much more. Eleanor was quiet for a long time, staring out at the dark night sky. "The life debt was a big part of it," she said softly, "but not all of it." She turned to look at me, her eyes filled with a sad, gentle light. "Ethan, you look so much like my first son, the one I lost." Isabella and I were stunned. I had another brother," Isabella asked, her voice barely a whisper. Eleanor nodded, tears tracing silent paths down her cheeks. "Yes, his name was Julian. If he were still alive, he would be 2 years older than Ethan. He was a mischievous boy, but so kind-hearted, just like you. He died in an accident when he was a teenager. It was the greatest pain of my life." Her voice broke. "The first time I saw you, I felt like Julian had come back to me. It's not that you look exactly like him, but the feeling, especially your eyes, the kindness and sincerity in them." She took my hand. "So, it wasn't just about repaying a debt. I genuinely wanted to be good to you, to give you all the love and opportunities one couldn't give Julian. Ethan, do you think I'm being selfish?" So that was it. All the extreme generosity, the fierce protectiveness. It all made sense now. A wave of warmth and sadness washed over me. I squeezed her hand. "No, Godmother, I don't think you're selfish at all, and I'm honored to remind you of him. I'll do my best to be a good son to you, for both of us." Isabella moved closer, wrapping her arms around her mother. "Mom, you have me, and you have my brother now." In that moment, all the mysteries were solved. The three of us held each other in a tight embrace, no longer a collection of broken pieces, but a whole, complete family. Outside, the night was quiet, the stars shining brightly. 15. Under the fireworks a year later. Vance Holdings had weathered the storm and was stronger than ever. With Eleanor's support and my own hard work, my grades had improved dramatically. I had even won a few academic scholarships. I was no longer the broke student worried about his next meal, though I still kept my part-time job, both for the money and to stay grounded. The change in Isabella was even more remarkable. She had shed much of her spoiled princess attitude and was seriously thinking about her future. She had even used her own money to start a small charitable foundation to help girls in underserved communities get an education. She still loved her designer clothes and handbags, but she was no longer defined by them. We still bickered. We still fought over the last piece of steak at dinner. We still made fun of each other relentlessly, but we were each other's biggest supporters. For my birthday, which was close to Isabella's, Eleanor booked the entire revolving restaurant at the top of the city's tallest skyscraper. It was just the three of us in a private, intimate celebration. Outside the panoramic windows, the city glittered below us, a breathtaking tapestry of light and motion. After we blew out the candles, Eleanor presented us with 2 gift boxes. Inside mine was a set of car keys and an official offer for a junior project manager position at Vance Holdings. "Ethan, you've earned this," I've seen your hard work and your talent. You'll start at the bottom, just like everyone else. Don't let me down. Inside Isabella's was a portfolio containing the complete legal and financial documents for a fully funded and operational charitable foundation, established in her name. Isabella, I support your dreams. This is yours now. Do good with it. We looked at our gifts, knowing they were more than just presents. They were a vote of confidence, a sign of her belief in us. Thank you, Godmother. Thank you, Mom. We looked at each other and smiled. After dinner, we went up to the rooftop observation deck. The night air was cool and crisp, the city's noise a distant hum. Suddenly, bang! A firework exploded in the night sky, a brilliant burst of color. It was followed by another, and another, until the entire sky was filled with a dazzling, kaleidoscopic display. Wow, it's beautiful, Isabella exclaimed. Eleanor smiled, putting her arms around her shoulders. Do you like it? I had them arranged just for your birthdays. We leaned against the railing, watching the spectacle unfold. The flickering light of the fireworks illuminated our faces. I turned and looked at Eleanor and Isabella beside me. Their eyes reflected the brilliant light, their faces aglow with pure, unadulterated happiness. In that moment, a profound sense of peace and warmth filled my heart. From a lonely, broke student to a man with a family, a home, a future. The journey had been a roller coaster of chaos and confusion. But here, under the fireworks, we were finally truly a family.